Oh, hey YouTube. Well, it's still winter here in New Zealand. We had a reasonably nice forecast day for the middle of winter, so I decided to go for a little fly. And we had a little incident on this flight, not with me in particular, but at our airfield, and I thought it'd be interesting to see what lessons can be learned from it. So the day started off quite normal. We took off. One of the main goals was to run my engine. So we did an engine test. We flew over to the ridge. There's a light convergence forming up on the ridge. So we spent some time playing around in the convergence, which was pretty much as good as the weather as you can possibly get at this stage of the year. On our way back home, we started approaching the airfield and we heard a radio call from another pilot. Luckily, I was using PureTrack on my phone and could see exactly where they were and who they were. She was in a powered aircraft and was heading to Matamata and did a radio call saying they're going to be joining long finals runway 10, touch and go. Alright, let's have a look on PureTrack here. We'll just turn off those layers and let's have a look at selected track length of 6 days, and let's do a search for the aircraft ZK Zulu Delta Mike. So I can click on that. It brings up the current location. Now obviously we don't care about where he is at the moment, we care about where they were. I think it was this flight here. As you can see, they've been zipping around the North Island here. Let's zoom into this bit here. Now as we hover over the chart here, it shows us all the other traffic around at the point that you're hovering over. So let's zoom in to the airfield here and we can see the other aircraft that were flying that particular day. Now we need to come back. Let's zoom in more. So here we go. They're on their way down from the north doing some exercises, heading towards Matamata. Now if I just turn on the airspace for a second, using that little quick button, you can see we've got what we call the MBZ. It's a mandatory broadcast zone. If you enter this zone, you have to use the radio to announce your position and what you're doing. Now, they flew in, and when they got close to the airfield here, they did a radio call as required. And they announced that they'll be landing on runway 10, and you can see the runway here. 10 is coming from the northwest, and 28 is coming from the southeast. So you can see 2 other aircraft in circuit, and I happen to be flying as well. I was over here watching the whole thing unfold. So we had 2 gliders on circuits with students in them. Papa Kilo, our DG1000, and Echo Oscar, our Puhats. And they are on downwind for a left hand for runway 28. If we click on them, you can see they were doing lots of circuits that day. And so was that one. So anyway, they entered the MBZ and they proceeded to do a radio call announcing they're on finals for 10. Now, of course, where was it? Let's zoom in a bit further just so we get the distances perfect. So here's what unfolded. Zulu Delta Mike comes in on 10, doing a nice steady approach, announces that they're doing a touch and go. Meanwhile, the other gliders have announced that they are doing circuits into 28, and they obviously cannot change their direction easily. Now, during all of this, we tried contacting the other person, Zulu Delta Mike, on the radio, but they must have had their volume down and didn't hear any of our calls warning he was landing into oncoming traffic. So our 2 gliders had to take evasive action to watch out for this plane that then proceeded to take off again directly on track. Now with PureTrack here you can zoom in and see how far away they were exactly. So it's really useful for analysing these kind of situations. You can see PK had landed at that point when they were on the runway doing their run up to take off again, but Echo Oscar was on final approach and they passed each other in opposite directions head on final approach. So one very handy tool in PureTrack is the measuring tool, and you can just click on that add a couple of points onto the map, drag them around, and you can snap them onto the aircraft you want to measure the distances between. So in this case, Zulu Delta Mike and Echo Oscar. And now as I drag around, it'll tell me the distances between those two aircraft while we're analysing it. So you can see at this point 534 metres, and then the next point when they pass each other is 365. Now obviously that was probably closer than that because we don't have enough resolution in the data to know exactly where they were as they passed each other, but we can take a bit of a guess by just drawing a line between the two, the flight tracks here, and it would have been about 70 metres, 100 metres, so very close. The flying school that owns this aircraft confirmed that yes, the pilot's done an incident report, as did we, and that they didn't have their radio volume up or something like that. So radio's working, but they couldn't hear any radio calls. So what can we learn from this? Well, a few things. One, always check your radio gear. If you're heading into a busy airport and you cannot hear any other aircraft, double check your volumes up and you've got the right frequency selected. It's hard to notice what is missing in this kind of situation. It's an innocent mistake anyone could make. Secondly, for gliders, we don't have the option to go around, but we can take actions such as putting the brakes away and deviating our track to avoid the other aircraft. So we do have options. Always check your NOTAMs and AIP information. For example, this pilot might have been able to learn about how we do winching at the airfield if they'd read the AIP plate. What is good, they didn't do an overhead join, which is not recommended if we're winching, because of course there's cables going in there overhead. Alright, thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.